Hello guys and welcome to another quick video. In this one we're going to talk about how to get proper size from Blender to game engines, because its great system is quite different from other packages that we're familiar with on those so-called industry standard. Right, so things like how big is a grade and things like unit wise, it's a little controversial compared to others that we're familiar with in this case. So let's take a look at that. We have a cube here in the middle. Now if you take a look at the scale, you can see it's 111, but you can see it's taking its length is taking 2 units, right? So that's kind of like a little bit weird. Like you would expect if it's 111 for default cube, I think it would be better if it's just 1 unit, but that's not a big issue. We can check the size of the unit and make sure that how big that is. You can go to the scene properties and look for units. You can see unit system is metric, right? Okay, there are other settings. I'm not sure like all those are viable, but let's do metric, right? It's looking fun, but then how big is that, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and hit X and delete that, and Shift A to go to add. I'm gonna add a cube here. You can see, well, the cube is the same as the default cube, but luckily we have this add cube panel here, and you can see its size is 2 meters. So that means this is 1 meter in this case. Okay, so with that being confirmed, then we can basically know what to do with the grid system. But there's a few things we can do to change it. Okay, the first of all, I'm going to change that size from 2 meter to 0.01 meter, which is 1 centimeter. The reason I do that is because this is the basic unit that other game engines are using, especially for things like Unreal Engine. In that case, centimeters is going to be the basic unit. You create a cube like that as a reference. Okay, one thing that's weird is that if you click away and that thing goes away and you can never get it back, which I do not understand why it has to be that way. Anyway, so I'm gonna go to the scene settings. You can see, well, this is 1 meter, this is 1 centimeter. Can I make it smaller? Well, you can try to drag the unit scale. When it gets bigger, the grade gets smaller. So yeah, I'm not sure why either, but if you change that to like 100, then yeah, you got the grade smaller. But I would like to keep this intact because the unit is basically the unit it's using. I don't want it to be different. 1 meter is 1 meter. I don't want it to be any different in this case. Another thing that's confusing is that the length is meter here. You can try to change it to centimeters. It doesn't really change the grade either. So this is nothing. Like, what does it even do, right? What does it even mean in this case? Like none of the values are changing. Like if I change that to meters, you can see that's a 111. I'm going to change that to centimeters. That's still 111. The grade doesn't change. This thing does very little. I think this is one thing it does. If you just create another new cube, now it's 1 centimeter, right? That's the only thing I see that's changing. So that wouldn't help at all. In fact, I don't think any of the things really helps me to define the size of the grade the way I want it to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and just change that to none. But I know that that 1 cube is 1 centimeters. Instead of changing anything in here, I'm gonna go to the drop down here and go to the viewport controls or overlays. I'm gonna scale the grade down here. That's just gonna be the size of the grade. Changing this value shouldn't affect the internal unit system. In this case, I'm gonna change that to 0.01, which is 100 times smaller. And you can see now, this is centimeter and this is the size of the grade, which is identical in that case, right? And that's going to be the way I would go for to create a grade that we're familiar with in other packages. 1 square is 1 centimeter. That's 10 squares, right? That's basically the system we're familiar with. If you wanted to change it to like other system, like for example, for many game developers, they like to model things in a modular way, right? So the size of their modules are something like 10, 20, 50, 100 sizes, and this system is perfect for that already. But there are other systems like the power of 2 system, which you have sizes like 16, 8, 32, 64, 128, 256. That power of 2 kind of like scale, which has its benefits, because if you think about it, the resolution of any texture is based on that, right? You have 1K texture and you have 512 to 56. That's a 1-to-1 match to the size of your model, so it's harder to get stretching when you match UV to like a trim sheet, basically, in texturing. On the other hand, it's also easier to combine things when it's power of 2, because if you have a bunch of modules that's based on power of 2, you know that 2 128 pieces combined together equals to 1 to 56. Right? You can combine them very easily, but if you have like a decimal system like 10, 20, 30, 50, then you have to wrap your mind and think about like how many small modules, like maybe 3 10s and 1 20 will combine into a 50 kind of thing. So it's a little bit more scattered when it comes to the sizes and matches. Anyway, so we're gonna talk about how to change this also into like a by 2 system, which is instead of 10 per grade, we're going to change that. So normally we want to have like a regular, for example, a floor piece. For the power of 2 module, it will be something around like 256. That's 256 centimeters, which is about 2.5 meter, which is probably a size we could use for like a floor module. So I'm gonna go here and change the scale. Change the scale. Change the subdivision to 16. Now this subdivision is confusing. It's not really subdivision, or you can think of it as subdivision, but this is basically like how many squares down there will have a thicker line, basically. So that means now we have 16 squares, 16 centimeters to form a big box, right? Okay, we can also go here and change that scale to also 16 times bigger, right? Now you can see now 16 centimeter is 1 grade, and there are 16 grade which forms a bigger grade here. So in total, that's 16 centimeters times 16 centimeters as 1 unit times 16 down the edge of this bigger square, and you got 256. So this is 256. 1 square is 16. In that way, you can easily change your model to that dimension. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Here in the scale, I'm gonna change y and x to 256 and z to 16. Now I know that all the units is centimeters. This is very clear, right? You don't have to worry about the system it defines, because we define it to nothing, right? We just use that cube as our reference, and we build everything based on that. So now I just need to move the floor to match to align its upper corner here to the origin, right? To do that, I'm gonna go ahead and use the move and move the 3D cursor, right? 3D cursor. I'm gonna check on the snapping and use vertex snapping and drag it over there to the point. And then I'm gonna go back here and change that to incremented grid snapping and go back to move. And let's see if I can just move this guy. Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's not very easy because I need to match that pivot to there in order to move it in there. Or I can type in a number here, but let's just move the pivot. I'm gonna Control Z to go back. I'm gonna move the pivot to there, right? I can just right click, set origin to the 3D cursor here, which by the way, it's kind of like a really bad system. Like what is the point of this stupid 3D cursor thing? It doesn't really help, because you have to match it to there. If I'm gonna match something to somewhere, I match something to somewhere. I don't need something else to be in there first, and then match something else to that thing. It's I don't know how to say. Anyway, I'm gonna move this thing down. So use the move tool, which again, the move operation is weird as hell. Like, you hit G and then you define the axis. Like, I have to start moving, and X, Y, Z are so far away on the keyboard. It's, I don't know. Drag it down there. Okay. All right. Enough of me complaining about its software. But anyway, now we have this floor in there. Okay. Cool. So now we can get this thing out by going to File, and then Export, and then we can export it as FBX and put it on the desktop. Okay. Now back here to Unreal Engine, I can go ahead and import it. Right, from desktop and import all. And you just use the default settings and everything should be fine. Now we have this model, just drag it in. You can see that's exactly the size that we defined, like 256, right? That's around that size, about like a little bit bigger than the human height, right? And then you can have a duplication. You can see my unit is changing to 256 for snapping. So that's very easy to create another module by holding down Alt and drag. And by the way, the way I change it to that is by going to Edit, Editor Preferences, and look for, you can just search for Power, and you can find use power up to snap size, and just check that on, and you'll be fine in that case. So yeah, that's basically how I would work with the unit system with Blender. Okay, just to transfer my knowledge from Maya to Blender, that's how I think that's the safest and most intuitive in this case. But there might be other ways, right? This is fairly new to all of us. Like, this is a newer version of Blender, and it's kind of like controversial in many things. But you know, I guess you just have to get more used to it in that case. Alright, cool. So that's it for this video. If you have some other ideas or workflows on how to achieve this, I would like to know. Or other comments on, you know, maybe it should be done in different ways. But I don't know. This is the way I think that's the most intuitive from a Maya user's perspective. Alright, cool. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.